So you might have seen that last week a Republican legal group is suing the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, so John Roberts, to try to move some of his power to Trump.
Yeah, amplifying the power of the executive branch.
But you probably didn't know this is the same group that stopped Biden from requiring schools to teach critical race theory in order to get like a federal grant. And just a few months ago, they obtained and released new photos of Hunter Biden meeting Xi Jinping.
They were also the group that sent letters to over 200 sanctuary cities and states saying that if they didn't help federal authorities in arresting immigrants, it would be illegal and that officials and even governors could be imprisoned.
So this week, we decided to track down this pro-Trump group that's been working in the shadows. Turns out they're called America First Legal, and they say they're the conservative answer to the ACLU. So it was founded by Trump's top advisor, who we all know, Stephen Miller, in 2021, right after Biden was sworn in, with the goal of challenging Biden's executive power.
Which is ironic since now they're suing everyone and everything to give Trump more executive power.
It's true.
But during Biden's term, they filed over 100 lawsuits against him and even helped Republican attorneys general prepare for cases. And they did this despite having fewer than 10 lawyers on their payroll, which is kind of crazy because the ACLU has over 500.
Well, that's why it's funny that Stephen Miller is in charge of this operation, because he's not even a lawyer.
Hello, I'm Stephen Miller, founder and president of America First Legal, a charitable foundation dedicated to defending your rights in court. I am here today with an urgent message. America's biggest corporations and universities are illegally discriminating against Americans based on race and sex. So if you are a victim of bigotry disguised as diversity or equity, please contact us now. Racism must be defeated. Thank you.
Their website says, "We founded America First Legal to save our country from the unholy alliance of corrupt special interests, big tech titans, the fake news media, and liberal Washington politicians."
And the AFL kind of brands itself as this underdog, just claiming that it's taking back the power that progressives have taken to misuse the court system, even though this AFL group is all very high profile DC insiders.
Their board of directors is led by several members of Trump's administration, so beyond Stephen Miller, there's also his former chief of staff, Mark Meadows. There's a former acting attorney general and his former budget director. Interestingly, just throwing it out there, they're all white men. And Trump, of course, gave his blessing to this operation when AFL launched, saying the era of unilateral legal surrender must end, and I hope all America First patriots will get behind America First Legal.
And they've had a lot of success. Their cases span the list of MAGA-related issues. So they've fought to protect Florida minors from drag shows, block debt relief to black farmers, which the group said was discriminatory because it focused on black farmers, and even got a core Obamacare provision overturned.
They also put a lot of emphasis on election integrity. So last year it came to light that in Arizona, a computer glitch allowed 200,000 people to register to vote without showing proof of citizenship, which is against the law. So of course, AFL stepped in and sued Arizona and actually got the judge to order Arizona to release the full list of names.
And the AFL's focus on challenging election and voting policies was extremely strategic because they challenged those policies in states like Arizona and Pennsylvania, which, as we know, are key battleground states in the presidential election.
They also stopped Biden from giving a path to citizenship to hundreds of thousands of undocumented immigrants. They protected employers' rights to enforce biblical values in their dress code and bathrooms, aka having a men's and women's room. And they won a case against the CDC for unlawfully deleting employees' emails.
And of course, as we went through their list of cases, we saw some odd ones. So AFL sued NYU on behalf of a male white first-year law student who said he was rejected from the law review because of his race and gender. There's a suit against Nike saying the company discriminates against white males, and one against Mattel, which accuses the toy company that makes Barbies and stuff of promoting a radical LGBTQ+ agenda.
It's seriously crazy how much they've done, and we have never heard of them. We obviously know Stephen Miller because he is currently Trump's deputy chief of staff for policy and Homeland Security advisor, and because he's literally only one of a handful of people who Trump can tolerate from his first administration.
Even during Trump's first firing spree, Miller kind of survived it all and is back for his second term and closer to the president than ever. So apparently Miller meets Trump and his chief of staff, Susie Wiles, every single day to sketch out executive orders. He even has Secret Service protection.
Kevin McCarthy has this wild quote, "I call Stephen Trump's brain. He has the president's complete trust. Trump's complained about everyone, never him."
And he's earned that trust by having this like ability to kind of read Trump's brain and turn his desires into actual tangible policies. So during Trump's first term, he was the architect of very hardline immigration policies like the travel ban on immigrants from Muslim countries and then shutting down immigration at the border during the pandemic. He's been also in the headlines the past few days for unsurprisingly wanting to suspend due process for migrants.
Insiders say he, more than any other Trump advisor, has spent time planning out what they're going to do in the second term. So he's planned policies. He's also built relationships with senators and representatives and right-wing media. And Elon, his wife, literally works for Doge. So low-key, Stephen Miller is one of the most powerful people in Washington.
But he isn't the center of attention, spotlight-seeking like Elons of the world. He's actually barely ever seen by Trump's side when the cameras are rolling. And according to insiders, Miller works in secrecy to make sure that nobody can subvert the Trump agenda. Apparently, he's very paranoid. Like, he doesn't email, he doesn't write things down. He prefers to send messages through emissaries.
Right, like we didn't even know he was the mastermind behind Trump's flood the zone strategy. Like, we all have seen he's just barraging us with executive orders. And I guess that was Miller's idea to try to overwhelm progressives since they can't keep up with everything at once.
But Miller is more than just a political mastermind. We would be remiss if we didn't mention that literally everyone in Washington refers to him as a racist. Trump has even said that if it was up to Miller, there would be only 100 million people in this country and they would all look like Miller.
Well, no wonder why so many of AFL's suits are against immigrants and people of color. The surprising thing is that Miller is Jewish, so he actually belongs to a minority group. And when you think of the history of white supremacists, they're usually anti-Semitic too. So it's just a weird confluence of stances to have.
And it's not like he's pretending to kind of have these views to get in Trump's good graces. Like, it seems like stopping discrimination against white Americans seems to be Miller's like passion project. So 70% of the AFL's total spending goes towards ads claiming anti-white bigotry.
When did racism against white people become okay? Joe Biden put white people last in line for COVID relief funds. Progressive corporations, airlines, universities all openly discriminate against white Americans. Racism is always wrong. The left's anti-white bigotry must stop. America First Legal paid for this ad.
Another ad says that Biden wants to pave the way for children to remove breasts and genitals. Quote, not long ago, everyone knew that you're either born a boy or a girl. Not anymore.
I don't know how normal it is for a legal firm to spend 16 times more on its ad than its lawyers, but that's what's happening here.
Definitely not normal.
But we've seen the AFL's role kind of change through administrations, and now it seems like its priority is to serve as Trump's attack dog.
And that's why we thought it was important to cover this story, because if you're wondering what Trump is going to do over the next 4 years, you just need to look at America First Legal's slate of lawsuits.
So let's take a look at some of these cases. So AFL sued Arizona's largest public school district, saying that its policy allowing teachers to discuss gender identity with its students without telling the parents was illegal. And the complaint goes on to predict that sexual violence and genital mutilation could be outcomes of this non-disclosure policy.
That seems like a stretch, but okay. They're also suing the State Department to get the records of the, quote, sabotage at the hotel where Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu stayed before his address to Congress last year. So they claim Biden failed to secure the hotel, which led to protesters attacking police and destroying monuments. And grossly, maggots and bugs were also released in the hotel.
Like, that's such a weird lawsuit. And then, of course, there's this onslaught of DEI cases. They have at least a dozen pending cases of company discrimination against white people because we know how hard it is for them. Like, they're suing on behalf of Emmy Award-winning anchor Jeff Vaughn, who alleges that CBS fired him for being white.
Yeah, they're trying to overturn the NFL's famous Rooney Rule, which requires teams to interview at least 2 candidates that are either minority or female for open coaching jobs. And if you look on the AFL's website, it lists over 40 major corporations that it's filed civil rights complaints against, like literally everyone. Lyft, Hershey, McDonald's, American, United, Southwest Airlines, Disney, Mattel, Kellogg's, Starbucks. Basically, if you've made an effort to try to hire a diverse workforce, expect to be served by AFL.
And these lawsuits get pretty ridiculous. They're actually suing NASCAR for marketing internships, like not even real jobs, but internships towards women and people of color. So the AFL argues that this creates a feeling of inferiority among white men that may affect their hearts and minds in a way unlikely to ever be undone. Like, okay, God forbid a woman ever intern at NASCAR.
Well, don't tell them about Danica Patrick. Well, this wraps your up-to-date briefing on America First Legal.
So we'll continue following their cases, and now that you know who's behind some of these really big lawsuits, you'll see how this small, unknown law firm is really working behind the scenes to push Trump Trump's agenda.
And this just in, Stephen Miller is a top contender to be Trump's next national security advisor.